HyperDoc is, it's not just a concept, there's actually it's a company founded by 3 pretty fantastic, amazing teachers. And this is how they define HyperDoc: an interactive Google Doc that replaces the worksheet or lecture method of delivering instruction. And when they say Google Doc, really it's expanded beyond just the doc. So as you saw in those examples, there were a couple of docs. There was also a Google slide deck. A Google form could be a HyperDoc. Built around this question of how might we effectively utilize technology tools to truly transform the learner or the student and teacher learning experience. And that transform part is important. So the SAML model is a model of thinking for how we approach designing lessons for blended learning. So when students are going to be working on an assignment on their Chromebooks, on their computers, digitally, thinking about how do we intentionally approach that model. And there's a video here that you'll have as a resource if you want to go back and watch, but I'm just going to kind of quickly review it. The acronym SAMR stands for Substitution, Augmentation, Modification, and Redefinition. So starting at the first 2 kind of steps, first is just substituting. If you have a worksheet and you scan it onto the computer, and then your students can use like a PDF editor to work on that worksheet, that's a substitution, right? We're just taking something analog and we're making it digital. No extras. Augmentation is going to go a step beyond that. So there's some functional improvement. Maybe they're able to add comments onto the side of that PDF editor, but it's still kind of staying within that same realm of what we do in the analog world. Where we're trying to be with something like a HyperDoc is in this transformation stage, the M and the R, modification and redefinition. Modification being a significant redesign of the task. So starting to move beyond what's possible with an analog delivery of instruction. Things like adding video elements, right? Adding some of those links, hyperlinks, is mostly, I think, where HyperDocs live in this modification realm. And then on the last stage of the SAMR model, we have redefinition. So kind of like a completely redesign of what's conceivable within the task. And that usually we're thinking about like students designing websites or connecting over like a video conference call with an expert or with another class from somewhere else, or something that's just entirely not possible without the technology and is completely divorced from that original like scanned worksheet. So that's the SAMR model. And again, the key is we're trying to be on the transformation end in the HyperDoc stage. It's not just a worksheet that you can do on your computer. We're actually taking it a step beyond. So starting with a template, we're going to now be building some like foundational skills that you need to modify or create your own HyperDocs. I know that you have iPad devices for your students. For today, I encourage you to use whichever device that you typically use when you're doing your lesson design and planning. So if you do that on an iPad, by all means, do it on your iPad. If you're typically creating on your laptop computer, and that's where you are right now on the Google Meet, I would say feel free to stay on your laptop to do this creation. What we're going to do now is we're going to start with the very basic template for a HyperDoc and start building and creating within it. When you click on it, it's going to look like this, and you're going to need to practice your first most important skill when it comes to creating a HyperDoc lesson, and that's the ability to make a copy of a document. Most HyperDocs that exist are free for teachers to reuse, but they're locked for editing. So you need to be able to make your own copy to be able to customize it for yourself. So if you don't already know how to do that, make sure you're in Google Meet. You're going to go to the top left-hand corner where it says File. Then at the bottom of this second section, make a copy. And then you can just keep it titled Copy of Basic HyperDoc Lesson, or we're each going to choose a topic to write about. I'm going to write about peanut butter and jelly as my example. Feel free to choose something more content specific to what you actually teach, or just choose like a favorite food, a favorite animal, because this is just a test run for fun. Again, if you've mastered that first skill of file, make a copy, you should now see that all of this is free for you to edit. So instead of lesson title at the top, we can change it to our actual lesson title. We can delete these instructions because these are for the teacher, not for the student. And then below this is that really structured lesson design plan that I was mentioning when we were looking kind of at that infographic slide. I think it's one of the neatest things about HyperDocs is it's really intentionally designed. So the lessons, when full, I think are often maybe a little bit too long to complete in maybe an hour-long class period. So this could be, like a week-long HyperDoc, or I oftentimes shorten these steps, but like a fully packaged HyperDoc starts with some sort of hook or engagement, just something kind of like short and fun, a comic or a silly video on the topic just to engage the students. An explore piece where students are independently exploring the topic. So very similar to what I had you do at the beginning of our session today. I gave you the 3 HyperDocs and I said, you just look at it on your own before I tell you about it, right? This could be articles, videos, great place to build in choice here, right? Look at one of these 3 resources to explore. Then the explain piece would be more of that direct instruction. You as the teacher providing an explanation of whatever the content is. That would be a great place for a Screencastify video or YouTube video. After that is the apply piece from the students. So asking them to apply whatever knowledge they've learned. Share. Ideally, students are sharing with each other or with some sort of authentic audience what they've created or what they've learned. A lot of different places to do this. If you're using Google Classroom, which I think you all are, the stream on Google Classroom, a Google Classroom question are great places to have them share out after the lesson. There are other ed tech tools. Not sure which ones you have access to, but Padlet, Flipgrid, a lot of like sharing-based platforms where you can do that. A reflection piece at the end for students. So that might be just a question within the document itself. It might be a Google form. And then finally at the end, an extension. So any students who are working ahead, working at a higher level, you might have an activity for them to do. Again, this is a lot to create for like a single block period. And it's a lot to complete in a single block period. So in order to get through all of this, this would probably be at least 2 or more class periods for me. Mostly when I'm creating these asynchronous lessons for a single day, I'm just focusing on the explore, explain, and apply piece. And so that's what we're going to do today. In fact, I'm going to just delete the other boxes here. Oops. There we go. And we're just going to focus on explore, explain, and apply. So starting with the explore piece, hopefully at this point, everybody has chosen a topic for their lesson. Again, I'm going to do peanut butter and jelly. We're going to have linked into explore 1 or more different resources for them to explore their topic. In my case, I'm going to just do the history of peanut butter and jelly. Here we go. I've got the nationalpeanutboard.org. This looks like a great article. And I'm going to now link it within my doc, right? That's the link part of the hyper part of the HyperDoc, the hyperlink. Up at the top here, I'm going to grab my URL, copy, and then I'm going to go back into my PB&J lesson, and I'm just going to link it to a set of instructions. Read this article. Over this article, I'm going to highlight, and then a couple of different ways to link. If you're not familiar with this, is another of our like basic foundational skills. You can right click the highlighted text, and kind of in the direct middle, that sideways paperclip is our universal sign for link. When you click that, you just have to paste into that box your article website. A couple of other ways to link. Up in your toolbar right in the middle, you have your link symbol. It's just that sideways paperclip link. Or my favorite way is the Control K shortcut. So holding down the Control button on your keyboard and the letter K at the same time brings up the linking feature. In the Explore box, I just want to do one more skill, which is kind of taking it from the basic, right? Linking text is important to know how to do. But one of the fundamental pieces of HyperDocs is they should look aesthetically pleasing and appealing and interesting to students. So instead of linking to text, we can also link to images. Within that same box, I'm going to ask you to choose an image to link to instead. Within Google Docs, if you go up to Insert and Image, your first option, you have a lot of different places that you can grab images from. You can upload them from your computer or from your drive. You can take a picture with your camera, like your computer camera. But by far what I use the most is this second option down that says Search the Web. When you click that, a little toolbar appears in your right-hand side. This is like the magic Google toolbar. And you can search for any image directly within Google right there on the side of your doc. So you don't have to go to a new tab. You don't have to download anything onto your computer. You can just select the image you like best, click Insert, and wherever your cursor is in the doc, the image will be inserted. I'm just going to select it, grab that blue little box on the side and minimize it just to make it a little bit smaller. And then from there, I can copy that link again. And instead of just linking the text, I can Control K and paste my link onto that image. So maybe a little bit more visually engaging way to do a choice board kind of activity is linking to images instead. Let's go ahead and move on to the explain piece. So again, in this piece of the lesson, it's where we're delivering the direct instruction. We're giving them the exact information that we want them to be able to know and then apply. So usually these are videos. Again, whether you're finding a YouTube video or whether you are recording and pasting your own video, kind of based on what you need to explain to students. But we'll look at both options. So the first option would be to find a YouTube video. I'm going to just go ahead and go into a new tab, go to YouTube, and then how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and find the video that I'm looking for here. The second skill that I want to emphasize is screenshotting. I do a lot of screenshotting when I'm creating HyperDocs because sometimes the image that I'm looking for doesn't exist, but I can find it on a certain website, or in this case, I want them to know that they're going to go watch a video without actually inserting the video into the Google Doc. So I'm going to create a screenshot of this little slide. For me, I'm on a PC, so I hold down Shift Window S, and then I get this little gray screen. I drag my box around the video shape, and then I'm going to jump back into my HyperDoc and paste that video image. Then that same skill where I'm having, where I'm linking, I'm just going to copy the URL and link it to the video. So when students click on the video, it's going to take them to the YouTube video. Screenshotting is going to be different depending on what you're using. So if you're on a Mac, Shift, Command, and 4 is your screenshot option. And if you are on your iPad, it's the power button plus the center button held at the same time is going to be your screenshot function. I just want to also mention that you can do the exact same thing here with Screencastify. Love Screencastify. I use it probably on a daily basis. And a lot of times that explain piece is me doing a Screencastify video because I found it's quicker for me just to explain it myself than to find a YouTube video that does what I need it to do. So you can use that same skill, right? You could screenshot a picture of your Screencastify video, and then from your drive or from your Screencastify window, just get that shareable link for your students. Make sure that they're able to view, copy it, and link it into your HyperDoc as well. So those are two good options for the explain piece. So the last piece is the apply piece. And again, this is going to be probably what you're assessing. Have your students been able to comprehend the explanation and demonstrate a task or a skill? A lot of times the apply piece is just, for me, a literal question within this box. So I'll ask a question here. And then sometimes I'll just add some text that says answer here. I'm just asking students to type right within that box, and I'll read it within the doc itself. There are a lot of other tools, like I mentioned, that you could use here as well, though. So this is just completely dependent on what you're already using and already comfortable using. Again, if you use Flipgrid, you want them to record a video or like a Screencastify response. That could be a great place for the apply piece. You could ask them to create something like a poster on a Google drawing or on a Google slide, and they could link their creation, or they could attach their own picture of their creation here. I always teach students to use that insert image camera feature. So if they do create something, like you could have them create a literal picture or poster during class and take a picture of it with their camera like this and insert it into their document. And the next step would be to, of course, assign this to your students. So, and I'm just going to kind of fully demonstrate the workflow here. So you get the full beginning to end. Here's my demo class where I have some pretend students in it. I would just go to my classwork for the day, create an assignment. Here's our HyperDoc assignment. Give any basic instructions. Usually my instructions are like, read the instructions on the document, and then in all caps, watch the videos, because sometimes they skip the videos. I'm like, the video is the whole lesson. And then I click my drive button down there at the bottom. Sorry, I didn't notice, or I didn't point that out. That little triangle button is my Google Drive button. Because these are Google Docs, automatically saved in our Google Drive, and conveniently, the most recent thing you've been working on will always be the first thing that pops up. So within my workflow, I always at least save it as a draft just to make it easy for myself. There's my PB&J HyperDoc. I'm going to insert it. In the case of this document, I always have to ask myself, what am I asking my students to do on it? If you have no place where students need to respond within the doc itself, if all of the application is going to be somewhere else or turned in somewhere else, students viewing the file is fine because they're just clicking on links and looking at things. In the case of this document, I did have them type an answer in that final apply piece. So I'm going to change that to make a copy for each student so that after it's assigned, I can make sure to go in and grade those individual answers. So there's that HyperDoc assignment. Once my students, it looks like it's still working on attaching these. There it is. Once my students start working on it, I can go in, scroll down to the apply piece, read the answers, give the grade, the feedback, and then I can move on to the next student and do the same.